After 11 years of early access, this insanely ambitious sci-fi FPS Angels Fall First finally got its 1.0 update. And I'm not being hyperbolic when I say insanely ambitious. This game is like Battlefield, but if they also added space dogfights, shipboarding, multi-crew capital ships, walking mech tanks, full-scale infantry combat, tons of weapons and customization options, over 20 maps, a server browser, player-hosted servers, full bot support including a commander for your entire team, and even more. On top of that, it's $18 for the whole experience. No battle passes, no microtransactions, everything included, which these days feels like an incredibly rare commodity. Angels Fall First is the real deal, and it is so cool to see an update so many years after this game first debuted. Now, to give you a little background on this whole crazy project, Angels Fall First was originally a mod for Homeworld that developed into a mod for Unreal Tournament 3 and won a $30,000 grant from Epic Games to turn it into a full game. And in a lot of ways, it does kind of feel like a product of that era of gaming. The graphics are certainly a bit more old school, inspired with a chunky aesthetic and tons of grit. The gunplay can feel a little floaty since the guns aren't the hyper-reactive weapons you'd find in, say, Call of Duty or Battlefield, and the movement reminds me a lot of Halo. In a good way, but in a more classic way. And the general vibe of the game is more relaxed and objective focused versus hyper-competitive esports FPS dialed-in shooter mechanics. And while the game may feel a little old school in certain areas, its ambition is astounding. It's like a small team of indie devs decided to make something with the scope of Star Citizen, at least on a mechanics level, where you can be an infantry, you can be in a tank, you can be in a spaceship, you can do all the crazy stuff you might expect to do in these massive mega games, and yet it was done with a small team. Now, the map variety in this game just tickles me, because some of these maps are kind of your basic land maps set in cities or rural locations, but some of them are full-scale space battles where you launch a variety of fighters, bombers, scout ships from a distant hangar, you warp into combat, and you try to board enemy ships to destroy them from the inside and secure their objectives. And surprisingly, each map feels very fleshed out. The ship combat and flight mechanics are actually intuitive and fun. You can fly with classic arcade controls where your ship movement follows your aim, but there's also a decoupled mode that allows for more advanced maneuvers. There's lock-on weapons, target lead indicators, countermeasures, shields, and a bunch of other small mechanics that work together to create some incredibly satisfying combat. And there's even crazy features that I would never expect to see in a game like this. You can commandeer a dropship that literally cuts holes in enemy ships, and then you can fight your way into that ship through the hole and even steal the ships from their hangar. It's really kind of amazing how much functionality is packed into this. Now, admittedly, it was a little hard for me to get as excited about the ground maps when you compare it to a full-on space fleet battle, because the ground maps feel more traditional. But nonetheless, the devs do bring their own unique twist to them. The maps themselves range from dusty outposts and barren landscapes to entire city blocks with crazy verticality and impressive atmosphere. And I'm genuinely impressed with the sheer variety of the map design. It would be impressive for a AAA game, let alone an indie game. One minute you're cresting massive hills looking over military bases or small towns with huge physical shields looming above them, then you may transition to trying to lock down some high-tech looking sci-fi building. Next, you're climbing a stairwell up 5 flights to a top floor of an urban commercial structure. And the scope and scale of this game doesn't just impress on the size and variety, but it also has complex customizable loadouts that let you highly tune and optimize your kit to be a true multi-purpose soldier. Every piece of equipment has a certain cost to it across 3 distinct categories: command, support, and combat. Most of the default loadouts spread your budget evenly across all 3, but you're free to specialize much more heavily into one of those categories. If you want to be purely combat focused, you can forego the multi-tool that repairs vehicles and heals down teammates. It's a very accessible system on the surface level, but it feels like it really lets you tinker with this loadout to dial it into very specific situations. Now, the last time I checked out this game was also when they released an update for it, but that was a little over 2 years ago. And as much as I wish I could say that the 1.0 update is this massive transformative overhaul to the experience, it feels more like an update that veterans of the game will appreciate rather than bringing in a whole bunch of crazy new content to attract new players. The official patch notes haven't yet been released because the devs are mostly working in their free time and focused more on supporting the game than advertising it. But the patch notes for the pre-release builds of the update are full of map balance changes, targeting outstanding issues like exploits or particularly challenging sectors. It's clear that a lot of effort went into polishing for this update, and they've added a lot of much needed quality of life improvements, including new player tutorials, UI improvements, and general bug fixes. One of the more hyped up quality of life updates is improved stability for 64-player servers. And of course, I think it's just crazy that an indie team is making a 64-player multiplayer FPS game with full-on vehicles and space combat that plays decently well, and the fact that they're dialing in that netcode stability and getting the servers more stable is kind of just a testament to the quality that these devs have brought to such a cool, wild game. Plus, the servers have bot support to fill in the gaps, and those bots are not just basic. They can fly ships, they can snipe, they can go toe-to-toe with you in a 1v1 combat scenario. It is surprisingly full-fledged. Now, of course, no game is perfect, and while I don't think any of the issues I'm about to get into are particularly bad or should deter people from checking out this game, it's still worth giving a little feedback here. My main issue with Angels Fall First is, well, the sound design, or really the lack of it. When you spawn into a match, there is this epic mission briefing with full narration and a whole holographic display. The music and cinematic intros to all the vehicles landing is also pretty epic. I did enjoy it. But when the match starts, and if the music's getting a bit annoying for you when you turn it off, well, at first I thought I actually turned off all the sound. Then it became clear to me that I think this game is meant to be played with the music on because there just isn't enough good ambient sound and other sound triggering during a standard gameplay session. Of course, there are sound effects triggering at the right moments when you need to hear bullets and explosions, but it's just not all that well balanced, and so if you're somebody who doesn't want to play with the game's music blasting, the soundscape might sound pretty sparse without it. The other thing in this game that ended up nagging me a bit more than I thought it was going to was that player movement is honestly pretty hard to track. And while I've seen players lag and skip around here or there, it's that the gunfights generally seem just difficult because enemy players can instantly change directions and move quickly without any sort of animation lead up. This is something that's been solved in a lot of more modern games with much more advanced animation systems, but because this game is so much older, developing a more complex animation system for all of that kind of stuff to dial in gunfights would be quite difficult. So while this game is certainly competent for the time in which it was released, there's definitely some noticeable things from quality of life changes that we've seen with other games over the years that this game doesn't quite have. Now, all that said, complaints aside, I still think this is an incredible game. It's worth checking out. I think it's very impressive for the scope and scale that this small team was able to achieve, and the fact that they're still updating it so many years later. I hope you guys enjoyed checking out this interesting indie game, and if you want to see some more behind the scenes on another indie game, check out the project I'm working on, C-Beams, a spaceship action RPG that I've been working on for over 2 years now, and we've got a whole series of dev vlogs documenting the process of what it's actually like to build a game. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. This is Level Cap, signing off.